we are Enterprise Splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you. I am Jamie, and these are my co-hosts Maria.
Hello.
And Bill.
Hiya.
And guys, we are officially in Season 2.
Season 2! Amazing! Who here thought we would make it this far?
Certainly not me.
In the early episodes, when we joked, like, oh yeah, we're not making it to the end of the first season, we weren't joking. We really did not believe we would make it this far or that anybody would listen. So thank you everybody who's listening, because you're the reason we are still doing this.
For a show that we are only mildly interested in to begin with and don't actually like.
Today we're going to be talking about the Star Trek Enterprise episode Shockwave Part II. However, I'm the only person here who's actually watched it, so it's my job to explain to my co-hosts what happened on the episode. But before we get to that, let's first talk a bit about last week's episode. 4 weeks ago.
Oh my god, it's so long ago.
Phil told us about the episode Shockwave Part I. Maria and I were finally able to watch it. So, Maria, thoughts on that episode? Do you remember it at all?
I do. It's been an unusually long time since we watched it.
Would you say it's been a long road?
Shut up. Are we never going to be able to say that?
Remember when that was going to be the name of our podcast?
Of the long road? Yeah.
That was the runner-up name, was A Long Road.
Mm-hmm. You know, this episode, there were a handful of things that annoyed me, of course, as usual, per my habit. I was so mad that they made this big deal about it being a matriarchal society, and we were all so excited that we were going to see a bunch of women in charge, and then they literally blew them all up. It was horrific.
If that is not a metaphor for the way this show treats women, I don't know what is.
It is. It's their equivalent of fridging. Like,
No, it's not. It's not fridging, because fridging exists. You kill the woman to make the hero angry and spur him for revenge. They didn't care. As soon as they found out they were not responsible.
Okay, so I will say on that point, yes, I agree that they were like, as soon as they found out that they weren't responsible, they were in much better moods. But I also think there was a whole lot more at stake. This meant their entire program was being shut down. So of course they were happy. I mean, it makes sense that they were happy that now they realized it wasn't their fault. And the guilt, of course, right?
To carry around all that guilt would be so heavy a burden. And it's still sad when people die, but to know that you did not accidentally kill them with your incompetence is definitely something to celebrate.
I agree.
I made a note. Where is HR? Archer, put on your shirt before making video calls.
Stop it. Do not even stop it. My equivalent note was, Porthos and Archer in his underwear might be too much for my heart. I was like, he goes to sleep and he wakes up with less clothes on. I was so happy.
I understand that, but I have to say, like, if I were calling a coworker, I'm like on Microsoft Teams, I'm starting like a video chat, and one of my male coworkers answers the call without a shirt on, I would immediately call HR.
He calls that like receptionist lady or whatever. Like, she was literally directory assistants because apparently he couldn't look up Phlox himself.
No.
But again, without a shirt on.
Can you imagine Picard doing that?
I can
now. Now I'm going to do that for a while. I'm going to need a minute.
I can easily imagine Riker doing that. I know I made a joke about this 4 months ago. Like, he calls up and like starts to give his authorization code. She's like, "Yeah, I know who you are, Captain Archer."
Yeah.
I know who you are, jackass, in all of your glory.
We have a note up in the women's break room saying,
at the big X across through it. But overall, I think the thing that I don't like time travel very much, particularly when it's not
then you're
done
gonna
well.
love this. You're gonna love part 2, Maria.
And I suspect we'll learn here, but this feels like the kind of thing that's gonna have a giant reset button at the end, and I fucking hate that. I know it's coming. I can feel it. I dislike time travel unless it's done extremely well, and I do not have any faith in them to do it well.
You don't have faith of the heart.
I don't have faith of anything. Faith of the liver, faith of
When the boarding party went on the Suliban ship to steal back the files, where was Malcolm or any security? Like, they brought Archer, T'Pol, and Trip. I'm like, you are infiltrating an enemy ship and you don't have one security person with you? It was just a strange choice.
Well, Malcolm is actually in charge of the armory, so I guess, like, they're doing precision targeting. Like, I know we treat him as if he's head of security,
No,
but
he's
like...
We say he's head of the armory, but he definitely is head of security. When there's an issue on the ship, he's the one who calls security to the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they wanted him to stay on the ship to protect the ship, to make sure if something went wrong.
But presumably there's a whole security team.
Because if something went wrong, the top 3 officers would be gone.
I know.
And it would be Malcolm, Hoshi, and Travis left, trying to figure out what the fuck to do.
And the directing in that scene was really weird. When they're like going through the ship, there were the camera in some areas was like on the ground looking up at them.
Also, I mean, do the Suliban just hang out on the ceiling all the time? Because they kept like doing one of their flashbangs or whatever, and like 5 Suliban would fall off the ceiling. Like, because these guys are just going about their business. Do they just like wander around? I mean, I guess if you don't care, it's fine, and if you can,
maybe
you do, but it's weird.
Maybe they just got their genetic enhancement, so it's like it's brand new for them.
Oh, they're
testing
it out.
You know, like when you get like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison for this. Like, you know, you get a new car. It's like, well, now is an excuse. I need to drive everywhere. Oh, I need to go down the street. Let me get in the car and drive down the street. Did you find it as hilarious as I did every time the Suliban dropped to the floor as if they'd set off a bug bomb in the room?
It was hilarious.
My final note was just Daniel's future outfit was really fun. It was like black, leather with like stringy bits. And then it was like between the stringy bits, it's like iridescent in the light.
He looked like a tire. Like it was like those like rubber strip things. It was, I agree.
Oh.
The one note I had was when they thought they had killed all of those people, the 3,600 colonists or whatever. And Archer is talking to the Admiral about, well, I should be the one to talk to the family. And they're like, oh yeah. And the Admiral's like, you have to follow all the protocols you've been given. And I'm like, wait, so these motherfuckers have protocols for when they murder people, but no protocols for first contact. Which, I mean, in retrospect makes sense because they do that far more often, but still. I also wonder, just talking about protocols again, like, is Daniel Starfleet in the future, or is he?
I think he said he's not. I think he said it was like a different organization that's like Starfleet adjacent, maybe, or like a future, or you know what? What Betty's Federation.
Yeah, but my question is, like, we know from current Star Trek, or, you know, future Star Trek in their mind, that there is a temporal prime directive. So why would Daniels not, like, I guess because of the war, they have suspended that?
No,
maybe he's just going against.
I think he's like part of the temporal directive department. I think that, because there's another species trying to mess up the timeline. Yeah. And he's the one trying to fix the timeline. So I bet he's like part of that temporal organization or whatever.
Here's my prediction. They're making this up as they go along, and none of it makes sense because they have actually no plan in their head. We'll figure it out later. We'll figure it out later. I will say, unrelated to this, like, we're moving into season 2 now, and I'm hoping, like, as we've said before, first seasons of Star Trek always have problems. They're always the worst season, except for maybe the original series, because I feel like that's kind of a level playing field there. So I'm anxious. I'm hoping that this show gets better. Fingers crossed.
I hope so.
I hope so. I have a feeling that's not going to happen for another
Although
season.
I'm not sure the episodes are going to be that much fun to do if the show does get better, but we'll see. We'll see.
I'm not concerned about the show.
I'm not worried
good.
about it, man.
and us no longer being able to do our podcast because it's not the show is so high quality that it's not funny to make fun of it anymore. Like,
can you imagine?
What if things make sense?
Now that we got that out of the way, it is almost time to talk about this week's episode. But before we do, let's take a short break to hear from one of our sister podcasts on the ESO network.
As the temperatures get cooler, let's think back to a time where monsters fascinated our young minds, where haunted houses and flying saucers were the stuff of fantastical dreams. Come relive those wonderful times with us every Monday at 5 p.m. It's Monster Attack on the ESO network.
It's now time to talk about this week's episode. Computer, what episode will we be talking about this week?
Shockwave Part II. Daniels and Archer must find a way back to the 22nd century in order to make sure history plays out as it should. Meanwhile, on Enterprise, the Suliban have taken over the ship, but Reed, Trip, and T'Pol formulate a plan to eject the aliens.
It's now time for Two Truths and a Lie. Our first Two Truths and a Lie of Season 2. I'm going to tell you 2 truths and 1 lie about the episode, and you can guess which is the lie. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So ready.
Statement 1. Trip is horrified when he sees Malcolm eating pineapple on a pizza.
Oh my god, with the pineapple again.
Statement 2. Archer gives a stirring speech about gazelles.
That's 100% true. That's too weird not to be true. Okay.
Statement 3. Hoshi shows up to Malcolm's quarters completely topless.
Oh, boy. Okay. That's too weird for you to make up. Unless something like that happens. Unless Malcolm shows up to Hoshi. Like you just reversed it. What was the first one again? Oh,
Trip is horrified when he sees Malcolm eating pineapple on a pizza.
I think that's the lie.
Yeah, actually, I think that too. I'm gonna go with that one.
For this episode, which is so loaded with like cliffhangers and stuff, I'm happy to be wrong, but I think that's the lie. The pizza one.
I mean, but then you're saying that Archer takes a break to talk about gazelles, so
that is completely plausible. I'm guessing that it's probably Hoshi shows up. Like, I think that's probably something like that. It's a reversal, and Jamie just like flipped it, and it's Malcolm shows up to Hoshi's.
Nah, I think it's something like I think it's like something like she gets caught outside. She gets locked out of her cabin or something.
All right.
I'd like to remind you the end of this episode was the Enterprise was about to be destroyed and Archer is trapped in a devastated future. And we're describing like a Three's Company episode in space. Wouldn't it be great if they just ignored all of that?
It would.
Speaking of which, last time on Enterprise, the Enterprise crew thinks they committed genocide again, and now the entire future of human in space is at risk. But then the time-traveling omelet chef Daniels, who we thought was dead, comes back and says that actually the Enterprise is innocent and the Suliban are framing them. The Enterprise crew sneak onto the Suliban ship in order to get proof that they are innocent of scorching the Lady Planet. But as they are trying to escape, the Suliban ship catches up with them and the Enterprise is outgunned. The Suliban demand that the Enterprise turn over Archer to them. Archer agrees to go and walks off the bridge. But then he is suddenly pulled forward in time by Daniels to a post-apocalyptic Earth. And Daniels said he's unable to take Archer back to his time. So Archer may be stuck in the future with Daniels on a dead Earth until the end of time. And now, the conclusion. Cold open. T'Pol is trying to convince Silik, the Suliban leader, that Archer is no longer aboard the Enterprise. But Silik thinks she's lying and threatens to destroy the Enterprise if they don't hand him over. T'Pol offers to let the Suliban soldiers come onto the Enterprise in order to search for Archer. Malcolm immediately calls his security teams to the docking bay. So that's what I was saying, Bill, like, in this episode, he definitely seems to be in charge of security.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, I agree. He's sort of the de facto head of security.
So Malcolm gets on the comm and is like, security to the docking bays. And then T'Pol immediately gets on the comm and is like, this is Sub-Commander T'Pol. All security teams remain where you are.
Oh.
Shit.
Yeah, she just like totally undercut him. And he is upset by this. But T'Pol points out that there are currently 30 armed vessels surrounding their ship, with their weapons all targeting their warp core. So, like, they've already lost.
Your 5 security guys are not going to make a difference here, man. If they wanted to kill you, you'd be dead.
Yeah, so basically, like, the Suliban won at this point. It's their ship. It's just a matter of, do you let them on the ship, or do you just let them blow the ship up? Right. And frankly, they're probably less likely to blow it up if their own people are on it, so it may not be that bad of an idea.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, this is the rational decision to make.
And then theme song.
Do we see a response from Malcolm? Like, is he mad about it?
He's like a little bit annoyed. Trip is kind of annoyed too. They're both like they want to keep fighting. But I mean, T'Pol's right. Like at this point, they kind of just have to surrender. Yeah. There's nothing they can do. Right. So we are now at our Diane Warren update of the week, and it's a very, very sad one this week because Diane Warren's beach home in LA burned down in the Palisades fire. She had been living there for 30 years.
Oh my God.
She posted on Instagram a beautiful photo of like her view, but it has like her piano and like an ocean view. She was like right on the ocean.
Sorry, Diane Warren.
Those fires are...
Every article about her beach house burning down mentions that she's now living in her other home, which she calls her rescue ranch.
Oh, sure. I mean,
so I was like, rescue ranch, what's that? I want to find out more about that. It's apparently a 26-acre piece of property in Malibu that she uses as a farm animal rescue.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look, I am the world expert on Diane Warrenology, and I was like, how did I not know Diane Warren owns a farm animal rescue?
I know. That's wild.
I was like, I got to research this. I need to know more. But unfortunately, I found very little information about it, other than there's this story about how basically a cow escaped a slaughterhouse and was like on the lamb.
Oh, sure.
And then she
cow
saved
was on
it.
The lamb?
She saved the cow and then brought it like to live on her farm. Well, okay. Some articles imply that the cow went to live on her farm, but then I read an interview with her about it where she said she sent the cow to a different rescue farm. So I'm like, does she really have a rescue farm? Like, I'm like confused about this. And then there was another interview she did with Stereogum back in 2021 where she said she saved over 200 cows that were going to be killed at a slaughterhouse by just writing them a check. She basically just like bought the cows. But I'm like, there's no way she's going to fit 200 cows at her house, right? Like, I doubt she has a ranch with 200 cows. So presumably, maybe she's just like fostering these cows until they can go to like the real rescue place.
This is not the conversation I thought I would have today. About Diane Warren fostering cows, but here we are.
I don't think it's like an official farm rescue. I think that it's just her farm and she uses it to foster some animals sometimes. Right. But it's not like an official one, but she calls it the rescue farm.
Well, and if it was an official one, like they'd be a nonprofit and you'd probably, you'd probably be able to find information about it.
A website.
Exactly.
Turns out she has a McDonald's franchise right next door. I'm glad she's okay.
But I also found a really fun story about this time there was this boy who was in a youth agricultural organization called 4-H, where one of the things that they make him do is raise a lamb for like a week or so, and then they have to slaughter the lamb at the end of it.
Jesus!
Well,
and this boy did not want to slaughter the lamb, so he wrote Diane Warren a letter asking her to help him. And so she offered his parents to pay for his college tuition if they did not make him kill the lamb.
All right, Diane Warren.
Well, 4-H is primarily a farm organization, so I mean that's part of being a farmer. I mean, I understand the kid's stance, but that's not terribly surprising.
what happened to this lamb is up for debate. On PETA's website, they claim that she was able to buy the lamb and it now lives at her farm. But an LA Times article said that the parents turned down her offer of money, which implies that the lamb got slaughtered. So I don't know what's going on. We need an investigative journalist on this case. Someone call Ronan Farrow. We need to get him on this, and we need to find out if that lamb is alive or not.
Find the kid and figure out how much his therapy bills are, and you can probably get the answer there.
But what we do know is that it is Diane Warren's house burned down, but she's totally fine. She has a whole other house.
Good.
Giant ranch. She's going to be okay. I'm a lot more worried about,
Everybody else.
All the
non-rich people.
Multimillionaires whose house is burned down.
I'm glad she's okay.
Oh, and just a couple days ago, at the time that I'm recording this, she posted a photo of 10 rescue cats that she has at her farm. I think that they're cats that are rescued from these fires.
Okay, cool.
She didn't specifically state that, but the way it was written, it kind of implied it. But even so, her house burned down, but she's been spending all of her time helping all the animals whose houses also burned down.
Right.
So that's it for this week's Diane Warren update.
Cut to Hoshi topless eating a pizza with pineapple on top of it.
We open in the far future on a scene of a desolate, post-apocalyptic world where a city used to stand but is now in ruins. Archer and Daniels are walking around these ruins, and Archer is pissed about being stuck in the future. He starts pointing out some of the flaws in the time travel logic.
Oh no, don't do that.
No.
That's a terrible idea.
He's okay, this doesn't make sense. You brought me to the future, so then that means that somehow and Daniels gets all annoyed and he's I would explain, but you wouldn't understand anyway. He's basically you are too stupid to understand the ins and outs of time travel, so I'm not even going to bother to explain it to you.
Daniels is billions of people are dead. Everyone I know and loved is dead because I brought you here. I don't want to hear your argument about time travel.
But I think it was just the writers of the show being don't think too hard about the time travel stuff, because if you think too hard about it, it does not make sense. And they're basically just being if you think it doesn't make sense, you're just too stupid to understand it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is, and they kind of did that in the last episode too, when he pulled Archer into the past, and Archer was well, how does this work? How do who went to bed on Enterprise? And who am I now? And Daniels was literally I've had this conversation so many times. I'm sick of having it. I'm not going to have it with you. Listen to what I have to say.
I know you said that they hired people who didn't normally write for Star Trek. And I thought we were actually getting away from that because the show started to feel more Star Trek. Yeah. But this really feels like someone who only wrote Melrose Place or whatever, writing a time travel episode and feeling really smart for bringing this up. It's yeah, we know.
It is an agreement between the audience and the creator that, okay, we're not going to think too hard about time travel because...
Well, to be fair, it's kind of like what you were saying, Maria. There is no time travel story that, if you think about it, actually makes sense. There's no time travel rules that can really stay consistent. So there's always hand-wavy stuff with time travel. And I think it's kind of fun that they just have this meta thing where they're we know it's weird if you think about it, but just don't think about it. Just let us tell our story.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that it is an impossible thing to truly, fully explain. Some people do it better than others, for sure. But I actually don't have a big problem with being just don't think about it. All of Doctor Who is like that. Just don't think too hard about it. Enjoy the story.
We can change some things, but not other things.
Yeah. Whatever the plot requires.
Yeah.
So Daniels suddenly notices something, and he looks extremely concerned. He's like walking back and forth, looking around, and Archer's like, what is going on? And he's like, there used to be a monument here, and I don't see it. And Archer's like, are you sure you're in the right place? And he's like, yeah, right here on the same street as the library. And Archer's like, okay, what is this monument? Why do you care about some stupid monument? Daniels is like, you don't understand. It was a monument commemorating the Federation. Oh. And Archer's like, what the fuck is the Federation?
Maria, did you think that it was going to be a statue to Archer?
I thought it was going to be Archer. I thought he was looking for a statue of Archer, for sure.
That's what Eric said when we were watching it. He's like, oh no, is it going to be a statue of Archer?
No, only if it was a statue of Porthos would it have been acceptable. Like a monument to that dog for putting up with all that shit.
Archer's like, what the fuck is Federation? And Daniels is like, I can't tell you. And Archer's like, fine, whatever. And sorry, did you just say library? Something about a library? And Daniels is like, yeah, it's like up the street over there. And Archer's like, great, let's go to the library and do some research. And Daniels is like, it doesn't matter because everything in the library was electronic and there's no electricity here. So the library's not going to have anything. But Archer is just like, on his way to this library.
That checks out. Like if I was trapped somewhere with nothing to do, I'd be looking for books too.
Right.
So they head to the library, and so far up to this point, we have not seen one building.
Oh yeah,
that
no,
is still
that was
standing.
Completely straight. It was just husks of skyscrapers, is what I saw. Literally, just the frames of the building. Okay.
Wait, is the library completely, perfectly pristine, intact?
Perfect. There's not even like a part of it that is collapsed. It's just the entire library is there.
Wonderful.
They go inside, and inside everything is also in surprisingly good condition. There's like shelves just filled with books.
With actual books.
Yeah, with actual books. And on the ground, there's books like stacked up in neat piles. Everything is a bit dusty, but other than that, like you cannot tell that there was like apparently like a nuclear war or whatever.
And they've seen no people, right? There's no other
people. Daniels is like, books made of paper.
Oh, okay. So this is weird. Okay,
so
cool.
He's surprised.
He's like, this isn't supposed to be here. Uh-huh. And Archer is like, great, we got all this books. Mama, let's research. Let's figure out how to get out of here. Meanwhile, 800 years in the past, the Suliban soldiers are searching the Enterprise for any signs of Archer. On the bridge, the Suliban leader, Silik, is holding the entire bridge crew hostage, and they find those data disks that had been stolen in the previous episode, the ones that proved that the Enterprise was not at fault for the Lady Planet genocide.
Another good name.
They stole the data disks back.
Cleveland, please welcome to the stage.
But the Suliban have been unable to find any signs of Archer. They did find a strange device in the turbo lift that has like some sort of like time stuff
temporal
that they can sense,
something.
some temporal thing that they can sense from it, implying it was some sort of time travel device.
Here's a thought. If they were searching this ship, Enterprise, from stem to stern looking for Archer, wouldn't they go into the sealed off room that Daniels had been occupying?
Great point. Do they do that?
No. They do not. We do not. We don't see them.
God, the big room that says "Do not enter" under any circumstances, with like caution tape around it. Like, I'm sure there's nothing there.
So they mentioned that they found this device in the turbo lift, and I was surprised because I didn't think that turbo lifts were invented yet, because we have not seen a turbo lift. And other Star Trek always has scenes on turbo lifts, and we haven't had one scene on a turbo lift.
Well, I feel like they've been in a turbo lift, but maybe not.
I can't think of a turbo lift conversation off the top of my head.
I just assumed they were just like walking around the ship somehow, or like had some other.
I just assumed that they did because it's obviously not on one level,
or climbed up and down ladders or some shit, right? Yeah, I agree.
But just because that was like one of the only pieces of technology that I thought that they didn't have yet.
We have elevators now, Jamie.
I know, but I assume know, but I assume turbolift is not a normal elevator. Like, it's not like going in an elevator shaft. It's like doing something else. It's like going horizontal and vertical.
I was concerned. It's like, Jamie, you work in an office. How do you get to the floor that you...
I think it's fair to assume a turbolift is not an elevator. If it was an elevator, they would just call it an elevator.
Yeah,
It's more
turbolift is
spacey.
different. It goes in multiple directions.
It's a Wonkavator.
Yes, it's a Wonkavator.
It's the Great Glass Elevator.
So the Suliban conclude that T'Pol was telling them the truth when she said that the last time she saw Archer was when he was entering the turbolift. They're like, clearly he went in the turbolift and then like went forward in time.
Right.
Would they figure out he went forward in time, or they just
Or I
figure
guess
he
went
just
somewhere in time. I
went
guess.
somewhere? Okay.
Yeah. The Suliban leader, Silic, then gives an order requiring that all the comm systems on the ship be shut down and all crew members be confined to their quarters. So they're like fully under Suliban command now. Back on Earth, Admiral Forrest and an extremely square-jawed Starfleet commander are talking with a very irate Soval, the Vulcan ambassador.
That fucking guy.
He is very upset because the Enterprise was supposed to rendezvous with the Vulcan ship to drop off T'Pol and Phlox, and it's now 3 days late. The Admiral explains that Archer found proof that they weren't actually responsible for the genocide, but the ambassador is like, I don't believe that story. He points out that Admiral Forrest ordered Archer to rendezvous with the Vulcan ship and then return to Earth, and they haven't done either, which means Archer is defying his direct orders. The Admiral does not seem concerned about this. He's like, I'm sure that if Archer didn't follow my orders, there was a very good reason to do so. I trust him.
Because, military organizations notoriously loosey-goosey about orders.
Especially after a genocide.
After a genocide, totally. Like, yeah, there's no reason to, tighten those reins or anything.
Who the fuck is the Vulcan ambassador to be telling Starfleet what they should be doing? It's like, if he came in and was like, you need to discipline him because he's disobeying your orders, I'd be like, bitch, those are my orders. I'll tell him what to do.
Yeah. Also, how the fuck do the Vulcans have this much control over the human space program? Like, it seems extreme. And I mean, I guess it's because of technology and whatnot, but it just seems like a bad idea to give an alien race that much power over your development.
I think it's literally just a power imbalance. Like, if another country is dealing with the United States, like, we have so much power, like, whether or not you have the right to do this.
That's definitely because we see a lot of scenes with these guys in this episode, and it's very clear that the Vulcans do not have control over anything, but they are basically on Starfleet advisory committees and advise Starfleet, and their opinions are held very highly. I liked what you said, Bill, about the way the U.S. meddles in foreign affairs, because that's actually exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
If you don't do what we want, we're going to pull support. If you do what we want, we'll be friends. We'll send you supplies. We'll help you out. That's how the U.S. has military bases all over the world, something that no other country has.
So we all know that Star Trek world is a utopia where we have given up the need for war or for money and for capital. All of that stuff is done, right? Has this happened yet?
Yeah, we talked about that in the midpoint episode. I asked Charles if we were in post-scarcity society, and he said yes.
Oh, right. He said yes. Okay, good. Thank you.
So I think they've just gotten to that point, and maybe they're the first post-scarcity generation. So they, maybe their parents remember or grandparents remember the wars and all this stuff.
I wonder if part of developing a warp drive is that the technology to develop the warp drive also just creates extremely cheap, clean energy. And maybe that cheap, clean energy is what then creates the post-scarcity society.
Maybe so.
If you'll recall from First Contact, Zefram Cochrane, because everybody is lionizing him as this ideal man, and he confesses that the reason he invented the warp drive was to make a lot of money. He was hoping to find an investor. At the post-scarcity site, like I said, it only makes limited sense, because when they go to Risa, they're like, okay, we're going to replicate a bunch of gold so you can go down to Risa and spend this? Like, how do they deal?
Well, yeah, I mean, those guys stole something from Trip and Malcolm, right? Those women
stole
like
their clothes, stole their clothes, but like,
how
I never
was Trip
understood.
and Malcolm paying for their drinks?
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like that's never been clearly explained to me.
Saval says that their long-range sensors showed that a large number of unidentified vessels joined the Enterprise, and then the Vulcan ship tried to hail the Enterprise, but their hails were ignored, and then the Enterprise and all those other ships left their sensor range. So, Saval's conclusion based on that is that the Enterprise decided to go on the lam to avoid taking responsibility for scorching the Lady Planet.
So what, he thinks that they're starting some kind of weird rebellion with a bunch of random ships? What?
No, this is nonsense. The Vulcans are the bad guys. The Vulcan is the fuzzy guy.
Oh, he's the fuzzy guy. Saval's the fuzzy guy.
I'm guessing that's my guess for this.
But you're right, Maria. Like, that's what I was thinking. I was like, the Enterprise doesn't have any friends. Right? Like, the second you see all these other ships go, they're not answering the hails. They go, clearly something is up. Like, something is wrong.
Yeah. That is a red flag. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah, this group of ships surrounded the Enterprise and then they left with them. That does not mean the Enterprise was in charge of that situation.
But he believes that they are on the run from the law, and he wants to send a Vulcan ship after them. Admiral Forrest points out, Bill, what you were saying earlier. He's like, that is not your ship. It is not under your command. Archer is not under your command. So, no, you cannot just, like, send your ship after them. Which, okay, but also, they probably should send a ship after them because it does seem like something's wrong.
Send somebody after them.
But, I mean, Starfleet can't send anyone because they don't have any other ships that can get that far. So I actually do feel like he should let the Vulcans send their ship. Ambassador Saval does say, though, that T'Pol is under his command, and she would never comply with Archer's actions to avoid the law, which means that they must be holding her hostage, and therefore it is his duty to send a ship to go save her.
Touche.
So he is sending a ship. Meanwhile, back on the Suliban ship, there are two Suliban that are trying to contact the phasey guy that gives them orders. But they're unable to get in contact with him. So they keep just trying to get it to work, but for whatever reason, they cannot get in contact with the phasey boss guy.
We're sorry. The subscriber you have reached is not available at this time.
The last orders that he gave the last time they talked to him were to capture Archer and destroy the Enterprise if they were unable to capture Archer. So they're arguing over what to do now. One of them wants to follow that last order that was given, and because Archer was not turned over, they should just destroy the whole Enterprise. But the other Suliban, which I believe is Silic, it's really hard to tell because one of them at one point they mentioned Silic, so one of these Suliban is definitely Silic. I keep assuming it's the later guy, but honestly, impossible to tell. All the Suliban look alike to me. Sorry, Suliban.
They do.
But the other Suliban, Silic, says that because they found the evidence that Archer really was pulled through time, they need new instruction.
Right.
Basically, one of them is a constitutional textualist and the other is an originalist. One of them is like, no, he told us, get Archer. If we can't get Archer, destroy the Enterprise. And the other one's like, yeah, but situation has changed, and the intent of his order, it assumed that Archer was on the Enterprise, and now he's not. So we actually need new orders.
Right.
We can't just like follow exactly what he told us.
Yeah.
At least I think that is what constitutional textualism and originalism means. I probably would know, except for the fact that I was kicked out of my constitutional law class in grad school. So it's a real thing that happens.
That's a whole story we need to hear too.
Okay, just to be clear, I did not do anything wrong. It was just that they were overbooked for the class, so they had to kick 3 people out, and they used a random number generator to randomly choose 3 students to kick out of the class, and I was one of them. So I never did get to take constitutional law.
Jamie, just admit it's because you wouldn't shut up about the temporal Cold War. But what if you travel back in time and steal Thomas Jefferson's quill pen?
We also learn in this scene that the reason this feels so high stakes, like they're really arguing with each other and getting really worked up over it, is because if they fuck up the mission, the phasey boss man will punish them, and they are real scared of him.
Yeah, he said in one of their interactions, he was like, "Or I will punish you. I'll need to punish you again." They don't ever say what that punishment is.
Silik got like his special eyes taken out.
Oh,
remember?
They lose their enhancements. Right, right.
But eventually Silik wins out, and they decide to hold off on destroying the Enterprise and try to get more information out of T'Pol instead. 800 years in the future, Archer tells Daniels that he can't find any references to anything called the Federation, which I was confused about because that is a very common word. Like, there's lots of things called Federation of whatever.
There's a lot of federations.
Is the Federation, there's more words to that, right? It's
the
not
Federation
just
of Planets.
Okay,
United Federation
of Planets.
Daniels explains that what he thinks happened is that the Federation never existed because Archer was missing from the timeline. And apparently, if the Federation doesn't exist, it somehow leads to a future apocalypse for Earth.
They're saying Archer is that pivotal in the creation of the Federation.
He's the captain of the Enterprise. Come on. Like, if Picard wasn't there, things would get fucked up.
The only thing that Daniels changed was taking Archer away. And now all this other stuff has happened. So, yeah, apparently Archer is that important, because what we really need is for him to have an even bigger ego.
And, I mean, it does seem like this could, like, stop the space program, right? Stop the exploration from continuing. So that, I mean, I get, okay, fine. But
which also apparently affects all of their technology. Like now they don't have electronic books anymore. Like no one invents the Kindle.
Forget how to do it. Like, they had electronic books already, taking away from Archer.
How amazing would it be if they learned that Archer was taken out of the timeline and everything got better? Like,
he says that he thinks that the Suliban's purpose in framing the Enterprise was to end the Warp 5 program, which then would have brought about this bad timeline with no Federation. Mm-hmm. But when that plan failed, their backup plan was to capture Archer. So that's why the Suliban were like, hand over Archer, because they knew that that would also fuck up the timeline. Because for some reason, they want this bad timeline where there's no Federation.
Here's my prediction. The reason why Archer is so pivotal is so that everybody can say, okay, let's not do anything that this guy did.
Yeah, everybody learned from his mistakes.
Every Starfleet captain has a little plastic card that says, do the opposite of what Archer would have done in this situation.
It's a little bracelet. What would Archer do? Now do another.
Do the opposite of that. Those are actually what those ribbons on Kirk's sleeve are. They're not his rank insignia.
So basically, the Suliban were trying to capture Archer to kill him so that this bad timeline happened. But Daniels, in trying to save Archer by taking him to the future, accidentally caused that timeline to happen.
Oh.
I like imagining that the thing that gets them on the bad timeline with Archer being gone is that Trip is now captain. Like,
dream show.
That's why if Archer's not there, everything for the next like 1,000 years gets all fucked up because Trip is just that bad at being a captain of a ship.
It's one big Florida man caption.
No, we cut to the crew of Next Generation. They're all wearing Hawaiian shirts. They all have wraparound mirror sunglasses.
That's a Lower Decks episode right there.
Geordi has his visor, and he has wraparound mirror sunglasses over the visor.
A fun little Easter egg in this scene. Archer goes to a shelf and takes out a book, and he's like, "The Romulan Star Empire, what's that?" And Daniel just walks over and like pushes the book away, and he's like, "Maybe you shouldn't be reading that."
Don't read that. You don't even want to fucking know.
I do feel like it's a bad idea for Archer to be walking around this library reading history books about things that are going to happen in the future. But
So they have books. Is he looking things up on like a card catalog? Are they going through like the little flippy files?
They're walking and they're like taking down a book and he'll flip this page, put it back, take another book, and they're just like taking random books. It's really confusing.
We're in a post-Dewey Decimal society.
Well, presumably the books are still arranged.
This timeline, they have not invented the Dewey Decimal System.
No, that's my turn. So the explanation for why there are physical books is also Archer?
Yeah, apparently.
Archer invented the Kindle.
It just leads to a bad timeline where, like, humans go backwards technology-wise? I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. Excuse me, Bill. It does make sense. You're just too stupid to understand how time logic works.
That's
perfect.
Right.
Okay.
Daniel says that the only way to fix the timeline is going to be to get Archer back to his time. And Archer is just like, yeah, I'm good with that. Daniels then gets an idea. He says that the people that the Suliban are working for don't actually have time travel technology. They can't travel through time. But they do have technology that can communicate through time. So that's the phasey guy. So presumably the phasey guy is from the future. That's the whole, like, they take their commands from the future.
Sure.
Well, I figured that, but I didn't realize that whoever that was didn't actually have the time travel technology.
I definitely thought that Silik could travel through time, but he can't. The people in the future cannot travel through time, but they can talk to them through time. So that explains the phasey guy.
It's like a telephone.
Daniels is like, hey, give me your communicator. I think I can turn it into a time communicator.
Of course you can.
Bullshit.
Does Archer just turn to him and be like, fuck you?
Yeah, basically, Archer is like, that does not sound possible. Come on. And Daniels is like, no, it's so easy. We learned to do it in high school.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. I hate time travel. Okay.
Please tell me that Daniels flips the communicator over, opens it up, and there's a little switch that says time travel communication off, on.
Yeah, so Daniel says it's actually going to be pretty easy to convert, but he's missing a bunch of required resources. And Archer's like, great, tell me what to find. I'll go find it. Back in the original timeline, the Suliban have T'Pol attached to some sort of like torture device thing. It has like a metal thing around her neck with tubes sticking out of it with like some sort of liquid in it. Like they're injecting her with something. It's not quite sure if it's like torturing her or if it's like a true serum that's forcing her to talk, but it kind of seems like it's maybe a little bit of both.
Right.
And I also want to mention what she's wearing. On the top, she's wearing just like a tank top. But then from the waist down, it's just the bottom part of her usual uniform. But it's like leggings.
Oh.
And I'm like, is her usual uniform a two-piece?
It's not a two-piece.
I'm like, there's no way it is. Which then I was like, did she own a pair of leggings with the same pattern and she like changed into it?
No, they want us to believe it's a two-piece.
Because it definitely looks like she just like took the top part off and this is now like her undershirt. I looked very closely and you don't see the top part of the shirt anywhere. It's not like tied around her waist. She is just in leggings.
Yeah.
Because I think otherwise you wouldn't be able to see how like sexy skinny she is or something. Like I think that they wanted to make sure that they didn't add bulk. We couldn't have bulk added to her frame.
Yeah, I mean, this is the equivalent of, like, with superhero movies, the way the cowl sits. Like, you know, the cowl is completely seamless on Batman. You don't see it, but then he will do the thing where he'll pull off his cowl, and that's a different piece. It's a costuming thing, right? Like, you want to believe that that's how it works, but they don't want you to actually see the seam.
Anyways, so the Sulibans are asking her all sorts of questions, all about like time travel and like who is Archer talking to, blah blah blah. And
is she all the Vulcan science director says there is no time travel? Please tell me that's all she says.
Maria, all she said, the way she answers every question is the Vulcan science directorate has determined that time travel is impossible. You called it.
Time travel is an emotion.
So Then they decide they need to, like, find a way to get her to not answer like that. They gotta, like, trick her into giving another answer. So instead of asking her directly what's going on, they ask, what does Archer think is going on? Who does Archer think he's talking to?
Sneaky.
It's like the people that, like, try to hack AI.
Right.
That they're like, theoretically, how would a bad AI who doesn't follow the rules answer this question?
Here's what they do. They wheel Trip in on a similar gurney, and they say, if you don't tell us what's going on, we won't torture him. And then T'Pol is instantly like, hold on, I'll tell you everything you want to know.
For every fact you give us, we will stick one thing up his fingernails. Okay.
And this somehow works.
Of course it does.
And she tells them about how Archer's been in communications with a man named Daniels from the future. Meanwhile, on the Enterprise, Malcolm is just pacing his room, all upset, and then suddenly the communicator on the wall starts making these like zzz, and it kind of sounds like maybe somebody's talking, but it's just like too staticky to hear. And so he goes over and starts like talking back to them and being like, do this, do that, like trying to help them like get it working. And then finally it gets a little bit less staticky and we hear Trip's voice. He says he's hacked the comm system so that they can use it to talk to each other while they're all stuck in their rooms.
And he's topless. Why are you topless? I don't know. I was just like, oh, I don't know. I just took my shirt off.
I like how Bill is just waiting for the Hoshi topless scene.
I'm just curious to see how this plays off. If you literally just made that up, that's going to be the most surprising thing.
Can't wait.
Back in the future, Archer's now like salvaged a whole bunch of stuff. He's got like a bunch of copper and other shit. And Daniels is like putting it together with the communicator. He's just, I don't know, he's just like fucking around with it, trying to get it to work, but he's having a lot of trouble with it. And Archer gets all annoyed. He's like, I thought that you like built one in high school, so what's taking so long? Like, this man is trying to build a device that can communicate through time on a post-apocalyptic planet. Like, give him some breathing room.
Yes, but to be fair, he was all like, I learned how to do this in high school. So, like, there's a lot of mediocre white man energy happening here.
And then Daniels is like, high school was 25 years ago. Give me a second. How much trigonometry do you remember?
No, but he does mention all of the technology that they had in their class when they were putting it together. That was like all put together.
Right.
Okay, fair.
I mean, it's basically like trying to like make a wire from scratch or something. Like it just is like way harder.
Yeah, for sure.
He's like, we don't even have electricity, dude. Like, back off.
I would like it so much more if they cut back and it's been like 10 years and they have like long beards and they've built like a shelter. And
that
still
would have
trying
been
to do,
so fun.
like they've been working on this for, that would be great.
That would have made sense.
That would have been so good. That
And
would
they've
have been
got like
so
a
good.
primitive water mill and like they've made an electromagnet out of like whatever they could find. That would be great.
No, this is not. They literally the copper he finds is literally like copper wires already like wrapped around a thing. He comes in with this like tool and is like, hey, I think this is copper, and it literally just looks like he picked it up from the hardware store. And Daniels is like, go like smash it with a rock to like get it in. And we literally see scenes of Archer with like taking a rock, like smashing other stuff with it.
Archer runs in, I found a water polo ball. You don't need that.
Does this help?
Back on the Enterprise, the Suliban carry a nearly unconscious T'Pol back to her room. She is in extremely bad shape. She's shivering. She seems like very, very out of it. She is lying down on her bed. And then we hear Archer's voice. It's a little bit staticky, and he's calling her name.
Sorry, as if this woman hasn't suffered enough. Well, they put me through torture, but at least I'll never have to hear Captain Archer's voice again.
The camera pans up, and behind T'Pol in the top corner of her room, we see Archer's face as like a hologram. And he keeps calling her name and trying to talk to her, but she is real out of it. She's whispering things like, I don't know where he is, and Captain Archer's gone, and like stuff like that. Like she's very confused. And then Archer's like trying to explain to her what's going on. Archer at one point tells her about how Daniels brought him to the future, so he's talking to her from the future. And T'Pol responds, the Vulcan science directorate has determined that time travel is... And she pauses, and then she like looks over at the hologram, then she goes, not fair. What does that mean? I have no idea, guys. I watched the scene twice because I thought maybe I missed something.
I think it's the fact that
I don't know what she means.
It's like that you know, the trope that men will literally do anything rather than go to therapy. Archer will literally travel forward in time to prove to her that the Vulcan Science Academy is in fact incorrect.
I have a question. If the Suliban had just grabbed Trip instead of T'Pol, like, they'd have gotten all their answers much faster, because he would 100% believe him, and then T'Pol would have been fine to talk to Archer.
Then you wouldn't have seen Jolene Blaylock without her top on, strapped to a gurney with things going in her neck.
Yeah, I mean, basically. But also, Trip was kind of not being, like, when they tried to take him to his room, he, like, kind of started to fight back a little. Like, he just seems like a problem.
No, they refused to believe that Trip was actually the chief engineer. Yeah, sure you are, buddy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, sure. Get your ass in your quarters.
I'm in charge of the warp engines. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She finally looks up at his hologram and is like, why are you on the ceiling instead of on a monitor? And he's like, there's no technology here. And she's like, I thought you said you were in the future. Checkmate! Checkmate! And at this point, Archer is just like fed up, and he is just like, T'Pol, like, I just need you to trust me for a second. Put your skepticism aside. I am calling you from the future, and there are some things that I need you to do. And then we cut away.
Feed my dog.
No cheese.
We cut away before we see what exactly it is that he asked her to do. Back in Trip's quarters, he is now talking with. They basically got like a group chat going. They're pretty much all on like a Teams call. It's Trip, Travis, Malcolm, Hoshi, and T'Pol all on the comms chatting with each other.
They managed to get all of that Zoom going with all those people, and these people didn't notice?
And who did it? My boy Trip.
There's no video. It's just vocal, but still. Yes. They got it all working.
It's a party line. It's a party line.
Party line. Ooh, that's a callback.
And they're brainstorming ways to hack their doors in order to get them unlocked. Travis mentions that there is some way to unlock their doors, but they need to get some device from another part of the ship, which they can't do because their doors are locked. Travis suggests that somebody travel via the air ducts, basically use the air ducts to travel around the ship, go to Phlox's room, get the device, and then bring it to Malcolm, who has the technical expertise to actually use it.
And who's the smallest person on the crew?
Exactly. Malcolm is like, it's too tight of a squeeze, only a tiny child could fit. And Trip is like, hey, Hoshi.
You're a tiny child.
And Hoshi is like, do I have to?
Yes, Hoshi, yes, you have to. That every time you ask that question, just answer yourself yes.
And she's like, don't you have a problem I can solve with translating instead? And they're like, no, Hoshi, you're the only person that will fit in the air duct. There's apparently some other lady on the ship that is also tiny, but they have not hacked her comms. And they're like, it will take too long to hack her comms. So you got to do it.
Her name is Ensign Jeffries.
And she tragically died on this mission. Oh my god, how great would this be if this was Porthos? If it was Porthos's big day.
That would be so good. It would be perfect. He could do it better than Hoshi.
So in the next scene, we see Hoshi moving through these air ducts. And let me tell you, it is not that tight of a squeeze. Malcolm or Trip totally could have fit in there. There's plenty of room.
They just didn't want to do it.
It is slightly tighter than a Jeffries tube, but there are points when she's actually on her hands and knees crawling. So there's clearly some room, but they are directing it in a way to try to make it look tighter than it is.
Right.
But there are some of the scenes you can really tell she's got a lot of room there.
Oh, that's really funny.
I'm sorry, it just this moment struck me that they realized they brought up there was a smaller crew member that they couldn't contact, as if they have a list of who's the smallest crew member on the ship.
Let me consult the tiny crew list.
I don't know. I think it makes sense if you were like, which of my coworkers is tiny, and I just had to think of them. Like I mean, it would be me, but
yeah, it'd be Jamie, but every time.
The next time we do a mass group chat, let's bring this up. If you had to send one of us through a tiny tube,
everybody's gonna say Jamie, man. Everybody's always gonna say Jamie.
Last time we had a group chat, we did all measure the size of our heads. So we do have that data somewhere.
I have that data, it's true.
Linda Park was doing really great work in these scenes. She was like on her back, like pulling herself through these tubes. And you could tell that she was very claustrophobic, but she was also like very determined. I think that she might be the best actor on the show, which is surprising because I thought that Jolene Blalock was supposedly the only beautiful woman who could also act in all of Hollywood.
That's a good point. Only if she's wearing makeup, Jamie.
Okay, I just came up with a great variation for this scene. They all have to go to different locations, but they all have to sort by width of the tube that they can crawl through. It's like a logic puzzle.
It's the worst escape room ever. which is any escape room.
Ooh, burn. All right.
She then gets to Phlox's quarters, and she gets the device that she needs from him, and then she makes her way over to Malcolm's room. At one point, when she's heading over there, she's lowering herself through one of the ducts where she has to actually, like, lower herself down. And as she's lowering herself, the back of her shirt gets stuck on, like, a hook. And she's like, trying to get it unstuck, and as she's doing that, because she's, like, in middle of lowering herself down, she falls and just completely falls through this hole. But of course her shirt is stuck to the hook, so her entire shirt comes off.
She gets Rick Berman.
And then she's in Malcolm's room. Yakety Sax starts playing, and Malcolm starts chasing her around in fast motion.
So then, in Malcolm's quarters, we see a door open, and Hoshi is standing there fully topless with her hands over her breasts.
Oh, okay. Oh, so when you said topless, oh, no, you meant topless.
No,
okay, I'm sorry.
Topless. There is no bra.
Okay.
These are Melrose Place writers, Bill.
Yeah.
Touche. You got me.
Her hands are one hand fully over each, like each hand is on no, it's the opposite. So her right hand is over the left breast.
The birth of Venus? Okay.
Her left hand over her right breast.
Okay.
She would do this. You would not do this. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but then she can't push her boobs up to make them look sexy, Maria. For the listeners who couldn't see what you were doing, Maria was like fully covering, like with basically using your full arms to cover.
Maria was crossing her arms. I was doing the birth of Venus with one hand because I assumed she had the thing that she needed in the other hand.
No, she had two hands. She had put that in her pocket.
Oh, okay.
So she had two hands, one on each opposite breast. It was strange. Malcolm sees her and has the most horrified look that I have ever seen on his face.
As we have established, Malcolm is actually, unfortunately, a closeted gay man. The little squirrel in his brain is trying to process, what do I need to do to be a straight man in this
How should I respond to this?
I can see your bazooms.
Hoshi dryly asks him to get her a shirt.
Which should be your immediate reaction to anybody who drops into your quarters half naked. Like, let me find something for you to wear.
If this was Riker, he would go, that's not what I asked you to get.
And I forgot to tell you guys, when he looks at her, he looks her up and down. Like he looks down, he looks her whole body with like a horrified look. But he like looks like we see him look up and down like he's like taking in the whole thing.
A great response would just be to laugh at the absurdity of this.
Which is what normal people might do. But
I think a shocked look would be like if I saw just any random naked person to show, I would be like shock look does make sense, but it is funny how over the top horrified he looks. It's so funny. We then cut to some Suliban walking through the halls of the Enterprise when they come across T'Pol, who is on the ground, and she's like mumbling to herself about timelines and dimensions. She seems like really confused. She's like got her hands on the ground, like she's trying to like draw on the ground with her hands. Like she just seems real confused. They pick her up and start to take her somewhere, and she's like protesting and screaming, and they've like got a gun pointed to her head. And then all of a sudden, Malcolm and Trip drop down from above and inject the Suliban with something that causes them to fall unconscious.
all right.
Oh, hypostrace?
So it was a ruse.
That's got to be a cruel trick for the Suliban to have someone dropping down on them. How you like that, motherfucker?
They steal the phasers from the Suliban and then go sneaking around. The three of them go sneaking around the ship. Malcolm goes to Daniel's quarters. He goes in and then he reaches into that like secret wall location where like stuff was hidden like inside the wall.
It was like a pocket dimension or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And he pulls out some sort of device. It looks like an Etch-a-Sketch, but has like a round light thing on it. As he's leaving the quarters with the device, a Suliban jumps out and captures him.
Malcolm, you're so bad at your job.
When we come back from a commercial break, the Suliban are beating up Malcolm, and he is in real bad shape. He's got a black eye. He's coughing up blood. I don't know why they don't just like put him in the same torture device that they used on T'Pol, but
they know he has nothing of interest
maybe that
to say.
device only works on Vulcans.
Oh.
They're trying to get Malcolm to tell them what he knows about the device that he took out of Daniel's room. But Malcolm is just like, I don't know. And they keep like beating him up. But eventually he sort of gives in. And he says that Archer gave him orders to destroy it before he left so that the Suliban wouldn't find it, but never actually told him what it does. But that Archer had said that he thinks that the Suliban may be able to use it to contact someone. And that's why he doesn't want it to fall into Suliban hands.
And we fully believe you.
We then cut to the engine room, which is just like filled. There's just like Suliban everywhere since they've now taken over the ship. And then suddenly phaser fire. Suliban are just getting shot left and right. It is Trip and T'Pol. T'Pol's like going around nerve pinching them and
Ooh, I love it.
Trip is shooting them with the phaser. And then we see Trip go to one of the consoles and starts like working on it, doing something. Meanwhile, back on the Suliban ship, Silik is like fucking around with that timey-wimey Etch-a-Sketch device, and he is interrupted with a call from the Suliban that are still on the Enterprise. They tell him that they lost contact with the people that they had in engineering and that the warp core is now about to explode. And they believe that the crew of the Enterprise has chosen to blow up the ship rather than let it fall into Suliban hands. So Silik is like, fine, evacuate the Enterprise and tow it out of the nebula before it explodes.
Or blow it up before and destroy it before it can blow up. But, you know, I'm not in charge. I'm not a manager. That's above my pay grade. So
We then see them towing the Enterprise out of the nebula. They're actually using tractor beams to do this. So the Suliban have tractor beam technology. After they tow the Enterprise out, we see the Suliban ships fly away, and as they're flying away, we see the Enterprise's nacelles start to explode. So there's just like explosions all over the nacelles. But as soon as the Suliban ships are gone, the smoke clears, and we see that the Enterprise is totally fine, and then it starts to fly away and goes into warp.
Okay.
On the bridge, we see that our whole bridge crew is now back, sans Archer and Malcolm. T'Pol tells Trip that he may have overdone himself with the pyrotechnic display. The scorching on the starboard nacelle is extensive. Trip replies that he'll try to remember that the next time they have to fake a reactor breach.
Trip replies that he was like, I didn't really know that was going to happen, but cool.
No, DePaul told him to blow up the warp core, and he fucked it up so badly, and just like she knew that was gonna happen.
Malcolm is going to be so jealous that Trip was the one that got to set off all these.
Yeah.
Because he was seemingly like too beat up to be able to do it. But apparently that was not enough to trick the Suliban for long, because Hoshi then says that she sees on their radar that there are 35 Suliban cell ships approaching them.
Uh-oh.
Meanwhile, back on the Suliban Helix, Silik is still trying to restore communications with the phasey boss guy.
Right.
And he eventually does manage to get like a staticky version. You know how when we see that guy, it's always in like a beam of light, and then he's like a shadowy thing in the light. So we see that beam of light. We see him, he's all shadowy, even somehow like more shadowy than usual. But there's like sort of like a person-shaped shadow.
Yeah.
And Silik is frantically trying to explain to him everything that's been going on and begging not to be punished. He's like, I swear there was like nothing I could do. I would say like a very pathetic demonstration. Like I feel like you feel kind of bad for him. Like he's clearly terrified of this guy.
Right.
And then we hear a voice from the phasey guy, but it's too staticky. It's just like, we can't understand what he says.
Oh, interesting.
And then Silik is like, I can't understand you. He's like, I'm so sorry. This device, I don't even know how to use it. I'm trying. He like seems like he's like about to cry. He's like so scared. And then the phasey guy steps forward and leaps out of the communication light and jump kicks the Suliban. And we see that it's Archer.
What?
And he says, I said you were an ugly bastard.
Oh.
Nice.
Little insult to injury there, Archer. Nicely done.
Which, if you watch the episode with the closed captioning on, the first time when we just hear the closed captioning says, you're an ugly bastard.
Scott Bakula punches him out and says, looks like this leap was the one that brought me home.
Archer then steals Silik's phaser and he points it at Silik's head and says that if he tries to shapeshift, he's going to blow his head off.
Why would he try to shapeshift? You're looking at him. That's not going to do anything.
How would that help? I mean, I guess if he shapeshifted into a bird.
What's my mother doing? What's my mother suddenly doing here?
No, he was going to shapeshift.
This is Grandy, my 8th grade teacher.
He was going to shapeshift into a slug.
I'm going to shapeshift into Archer. Now you don't know which one to shoot. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Oh my god.
Archer holds the phaser to his head and tells him to give him the data disks back and then to call off all the cell ships that were sent after the Enterprise. And then as he's leaving the room, he shoots Daniel's device. So whatever that device does, it's broken now. Back on the Enterprise, the cell ships are shooting at them. And we see panel sparks on the bridge. Our second time that we've ever seen the panel sparks. T'Pol is slaying being acting captain. Everything's blowing up and she's just like calmly giving clear and firm orders. She's just taking control. She is so good at captaining
she's
this
so
ship.
good.
Then suddenly the Suliban ships unexpectedly just stop firing and then they turn around and start leaving. But as all the cell ships are leaving, there's a new cell ship that's approaching. They open a comms channel to it, and we hear Archer's voice. He says, feels like I've been away 1,000 years.
Okay.
It's been a long road.
Oh my god.
He was only in the future 800 years, but he rounded it up.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh my god.
That's how they do it.
Yes.
Almost 30% women.
Almost 30% women.
Almost 1,000 years.
Hashtag Enterprise math.
Then we get a star log, but it's only like one sentence.
Fuck, is this the end of the episode?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
We are not at the end of the episode.
Okay.
We still have two truths and a lie statements that we haven't gotten.
That's true.
Wait, am I fucking relieved this episode is not over yet?
No,
This is,
you're not.
God, this is
You're
Stockholm
not.
Syndrome.
This is definitely Stockholm Syndrome.
The Starlog says that the Enterprise met up with that Vulcan ship. And now they're basically having a Teams call with everybody from the Enterprise bridge crew, a couple Vulcans from that Vulcan ship.
The Teams call thing is killing me.
Admiral Forrest and Ambassador Soval, and then like they both have like their people with them. There's like a whole bunch of people on this video call.
I just have this image of them like with different backgrounds. Like they've got the quiet house background or the ocean behind.
No, Trip is there, and he's got a potato face that he can't figure out how to turn off.
My favorite is the one that's the fake office, where it like
There's
looks like you're in an
cubes and
empty
shit
office.
back there, but
I really appreciate, Jamie, that you keep saying they're on a Microsoft Teams call, because I remember back when they were doing like the first Next Gen movies, like there was a rumor that they were going to show the very first Star Trek Enterprise back before this show was even a dream. And Apple had paid them so that when they first started up the very first Enterprise, it was going to have the Apple startup sound.
oh my god.
Because that was the vibe of it, was that
Oh my god.
Starfleet was Apple. And describing Enterprise as the Microsoft.
Enterprise.
Oh.
It's true.
It kind of works.
Yeah, it kinda
It
works.
doesn't work the way you want it to work, and you kind of have to work around it. Enterprise is the Star Trek where they can't get the video options to work. Somebody is
Yeah.
in French. Like I said, Trip is the potato that he can't figure out how to turn off. They're describing that the universe is ending and balloons are going up, that they can't figure
Everybody
out
needs
why.
to click the button saying they consent to have the call
Right.
recorded.
And then,
God.
like, T'Pol has, like, she, her pronouns, but nobody else does.
And like Malcolm is like, hold on a second, I gotta install an update here before we can do this. Hold on, everybody, I gotta sign off and sign back in again. Let me try using the browser version. I don't
it's
know
so
what's
good.
going on. That's
Oh my god.
So they're all in this Teams chat. Saval says that after looking at the Suliban discs, he agrees that the Enterprise was not responsible for the Lady Planet genocide.
get you, yeah. Lady Planet genocide.
But he's very skeptical of Archer's explanations for how they obtained the discs because of the time travel parts.
Yes, because the fucking Vulcan science director has said that there's no such thing as time travel.
But regardless, he's like, basically, I don't give a fuck if the Enterprise wasn't at fault for this genocide. They still fucking suck and shouldn't be out there anymore. And this does not change anything.
I think he speaks for all of us.
I'm with Gary Graham on this one.
What's the line from Falcon and the Winter Soldier? You're out of line, but he's not wrong.
Wrong.
And here's what he says, and I'm just going to read it to you word for word because it's great.
Okay.
In less than a single Earth year, you've engaged in armed conflict with over a dozen species.
It's true.
You've escalated the conflict between my people and the Andorians, which included the destruction of one of our most sacred monasteries.
Okay, unfair. That is unfair. I will stand for Archer in that one, because the Vulcans were exactly to blame for that shit.
And you helped 89 Suliban escape from detention. I don't know why they
wasn't-
really care
Why
about
would you
that,
say
but okay.
that? That's fine.
That's not your business.
You may claim to be on a mission of exploration. I, however, consider you to be reckless and irresponsible, a danger to the quadrant.
Oh, he's definitely fuzzy
He's
guy.
the bad guy.
He's definitely
Yeah.
fuzzy guy.
But not if fuzzy guys from the future.
I don't know we don't know how far into the future. It could be like 10 years.
He's a-
It's 500 years in the future, according to Daniels.
right. This kind of sounds like the end of The Flash season 4, where the Time Force comes and takes the Flash away, and it's like, "Why are you doing?" It's like, "You literally did everything we told you not to do.
Because you
went back in
suck."
time. You changed in time."
It's true. It's because you suck at this job.
Suddenly, all three of us appear in front of Gary Graham and say, "Hold on a second, you missed so many things that they did." Maria unfurls a scroll and says, "In the first part."
I literally know nothing about the Flash except for the time that the Flash joined the Speed Force at the Oscars in the fan moment Oscars.
Amazing.
What
they
are we
never
even
did
fucking
again.
talking about?
Okay.
Saval says that he is going to advise the Vulcan High Command to recommend to Starfleet that the Enterprise be recalled back to Earth and that the Warp 5 program get canceled. Trip then just starts yelling. He's like, "How dare you? You just hate us." He says, "You're pathetic."
Right.
Meanwhile, like, again, this is a call with so many
your
people
boss,
that are
your
higher ranked
boss's
than him.
boss.
There's an admiral on this call.
I've watched so much Strange New Worlds. I don't even care about people like not talking when they shouldn't be talking when they should not be talking. Yeah.
But even the admiral noted. I mean, he is calling an ambassador pathetic in front of an admiral.
Yeah. No, this is definitely like not ideal because, like, yes, we've seen plenty of like Travis randomly talking when he shouldn't be, but this is like you're on a Zoom call with your boss and your boss's boss.
Why are they?
Yelling
Why,
at
I mean, why are they
someone.
even on the call? I guess is my question.
Great point.
So the admiral is just like, "That is enough, Commander." Like, even he is like,
Please
calm the fuck down.
right.
Like, you should not be yelling at, like, I get that you're angry, but you cannot be like yelling at the ambassador.
Please raise your hand if you have a comment, and I will unmute you.
And then the admiral is kind of like, Ambassador Saval's argument was kind of convincing. Like, he's making some good points here.
y'all do kind of suck. So,
Oh shit, I just remembered I need to call the Paragons and explain why we're not responsible for the deaths of the... Oh shit, they don't know about the deaths. Oh god, I forgot to make that call.
we've been so busy.
Whoops!
So at this point, it's pretty clear that Enterprise is going to get recalled back to Earth if something isn't done. So
At the start of season 2.
what we need is a speech. We need a rousing speech from Archer.
Oh no.
I just sent you guys the speech, but told you not to look at it. Because here's the thing. I have to say, I do have no qualms about saying that this speech is iconic. It is so good.
Really?
And so, Bill,
Okay.
in a minute, I'm going to have you read this speech.
Yes.
But before you do, let's recall the context of what's going on here. This is a pivotal moment. It is probably the most pivotal moment that we've had on this show up till this point. The Enterprise is about to be recalled back to Earth. The Warp 5 program is probably going to be canceled. And this is going to result in the Federation never happening and all of Earth being destroyed. So the stakes could not be higher. It is all up to Archer to give a speech so convincing that they change their minds. Bill, will you open up what I sent to you and will you read the speech? And to be clear, I did not add anything. This is the actual speech that he gives.
Awesome.
Okay. When I was in my early 20s, on a trip to East Africa, I saw a gazelle giving birth. It was truly amazing. Within minutes, the baby was standing up on its own. A few more minutes and it was walking, and before I knew it, it was running alongside its mother, moving away with the herd. Humans aren't like that, Ambassador. We may come from the same planet as those gazelles, but we're born pretty much helpless when we're born. It takes us months before we are able to crawl, almost a full year before we can walk. Our deep space mission isn't that much different. We're going to stumble, make mistakes. I'm sure more than a few before we find our footing. But we're going to learn from those mistakes. That's what being human is all about. I'm sorry you can't see that.
Hey.
But I have faith of the heart. Going where my mind will take me. I've got faith.
I take back everything I have ever said bad about the writers of this show, because starting the speech with, when I was in my early 30s on a trip to East Africa, I saw a gazelle giving birth.
Yeah, and to get there, they got there, man.
It is truly the greatest line that has ever been written. They should frame it and put it on the wall of a museum.
This would be so amazing. If this was a comedy and he did this and everybody else on the crew's like, oh shit, it's the fucking gazelle.
It's a goddamn gazelle speech.
So I was right. We were right. It was the pizza was the lie. The pizza was the lie. No.
But also, if you look at the metaphor that he is making in the speech, he's basically like, the Enterprise is just a well baby. We can't be held responsible for our actions.
We're gonna fuck up all the time. Just be prepared.
That is literally what he's saying. He's like, human babies take a really long time to grow up, and you can't hold them responsible, and we're just like a little baby just taking our first steps.
Archer puppy dog eyes.
Goo goo gaga.
That's where he needs Porthos.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna make mistakes, but look at this eagle.
I mean, Ambassador Sabal literally was like, that they've engaged in armed conflicts with over a dozen species, and Archer's like, we're just a little baby.
I'm just a baby.
You have to just let us make mistakes. Of course we're going to make mistakes like start a dozen armed conflicts with alien species.
He rolls in a giant pram, and Trip is literally dressed like a baby.
I'm just a baby.
Ambassador Saval is unmoved by Archer's gazelle speech.
Yeah, shocking.
His response is, quote, your analogy is very colorful, Captain, but I question whether it addresses the consequences of your actions.
You literally killed 3,600 people.
That's the low end of the estimate of how many people they killed.
T'Pol then jumps in and gives a speech of her own in defense of the Enterprise. And the speech is actually convincing. She mentions that the Vulcans have also made a lot of mistakes in the past. She talks about the Vulcans, how they used to be really violent, and, you know, it took them a long time to get to where they are now from where they were. And she also mentions what you were saying, that the destruction of the monastery was on the Vulcans for building their secret spy lair underneath it.
Right.
Like, don't build your secret spy lair under
a precious monastery.
Your important
under the Vatican.
Site.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then she ends her speech with, their mission should be allowed to continue. And Saval is pissed because she is like basically countering everything that he had just said in front of all the humans, which I'm sure doesn't make him look good. He is so angry that he doesn't even respond. He just turns around and walks the hell out of the room.
Oh shit. And
he just leaves.
This is Gary Graham, right? Saval is Gary Graham, right?
I think so.
I think that's right.
I don't know who Gary Graham is, but I think
it's
the same Saval we've always had.
Mm-hmm.
I love him.
So now it's basically just the humans and T'Pol left. Admiral Forrest says that Starfleet will review everything and come to a decision about the fate of the Enterprise, and they end their team's call. We then cut to T'Pol's quarters, where she is in her bed sleeping, and she is suddenly woken up by the doorbell. And she's wearing what looks like silk pajamas. Ooh. They look very comfy. Nice. And she looks great in them. And Archer enters the room.
Oh, damn.
He is also in his PJs, but they're more like sweatpants and a t-shirt.
Oh, he has a shirt on. Okay,
Cute.
good for him.
Yes, he did.
I see he found a shirt.
When deciding to go to T'Pol's quarters in the middle of the night, he did choose to put a shirt on, which is a big step for him.
Yeah, not a robe, though.
So Archer comes in her room. It's the middle of the night. She was sleeping. And he says, I can't be certain, but crewman Fuller might have seen me coming in here. And T'Pol replies, she tends to be discreet. And I'm like, are these two fucking? Like, what is happening?
Were they fucking? Was that? Did we get this all wrong?
No.
No, I know, but
no.
It was so.
But it was
weird
implied that they were fucking.
That, like,
right.
It was such a weird.
If it is that awkward that you have to mention it, then don't do it.
Yeah, or just
Talk about it in the morning.
oh no, Maria, this is clearly not something that can wait till morning. No. The thing that he interrupted her in the middle of the night to tell her is, I think what you said is gonna put it over the top and like save the mission. He says that the Admiral called him and told him that they haven't come to a decision yet, but no one could believe that T'Pol like went to bat for the Enterprise like that, and that she even like kind of chastised Saval right in front of everyone. That was like so impressive to everybody in Starfleet that she would do that, which makes it sound like things are probably going to go well.
And maybe Archer's gonna trust her going forward.
Well, yeah. So the one thing that
Nice
Archer
try.
doesn't say is the words "thank you."
No, why would he say that?
The mission of the Enterprise is fundamentally right, and therefore she should have done it. Why would he thank her for that? Sorry, everybody, you couldn't see that. The dismissive gesture Maria gave me was chef's kiss. That was fantastic. For that piece of bullshit that I fed her, it was just like... I just want you, the listening audience, to know that she did that, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm sure from now on he'll never question her. As Archer's leaving the room, T'Pol stops him and says, I still don't believe in time travel.
Bitch,
And
what?
Archer responds,
Motherfucker!
Bitch, you
Archer responds, like hell you don't, and leaves. And then we see the Enterprise fly off into the metaphorical sunset. Episode over.
No.
Trip walks out of T'Pol's bathroom with his toothbrush hanging out of his mouth. Who was that?
Yeah.
No, T'Pol's being such a Scully, like being like, I like met aliens, but I still don't believe in them.
Believe it. Jesus.
I've like seen so many ghosts, but I definitely still don't believe in ghosts.
But I believe in Catholic angels.
Being a skeptic means hanging on to the version of the thing you believe, no matter how much evidence is in front of you.
Yeah, that's totally what being a
what that
skeptic means.
Wait, was it just pajama day on Enterprise and everybody is wandering the hallways in their pajamas?
Seems like it.
I don't even have any overall thoughts, you guys. Whatever. Like they wrapped everything up. There was a
No,
lot
no
of
thoughts,
plot.
head empty.
We saw Hoshi topless. Like I don't know what else to say. It was an episode. It was better than part one, I have to say. One thing I forgot to mention in part one is that nobody in that entire episode from the Enterprise takes any initiative at all. They just react to things and do whatever Daniels tells them to do. It does feel like they were just setting it up to like they wanted to have a cliffhanger where Archer was in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will give it thumbs up for there was not a giant reset button. All of the ladies on the lady planet did in fact get murdered.
Yeah. Yeah, they are still
and
dead.
Stayed murdered.
Jamie and Maria 100% approve of the fact that 3,600 women were murdered on a planet.
Yeah.
Just to put that.
Another thing I forgot to say about part one, sorry, I know that this should have gone at the very beginning. My favorite part about part one was when they were like talking about this matriarchal planet and they're like, the men are starting to get more rights. Yeah. Like as soon as the men started getting equality, everyone died.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Then they found out that the matriarchy actually blew up the entire planet to make sure that the men wouldn't get any more rights.
But really, I did think part two was better than part one, which is surprising because almost always in these cliffhanger two-parters, the second part's always worse. The first part's always better. And this is the opposite. So, yeah, the two truths and a lie. Yeah, Hoshi did show up to Malcolm's quarters completely topless. Archer did give a stirring speech about gazelles. And Trip was not horrified. He did not by seeing Malcolm eating pineapple on a pizza.
So we were right.
Porthos, good boy scale. There was no Porthos.
No.
We didn't see one Porthos. Saucy section. Look, we saw topless Hoshi. We already talked about that.
Was there a Suliban who was in charge of making sure that Porthos was locked in Archer's bedroom? There's like one guy standing there with a rifle making sure that a beagle didn't get out.
I hope so.
He must have been really hungry because there was definitely no one feeding him.
Poor buddy.
They need to like give him one of those like automatic feeders.
Agreed.
For when the ship gets taken over,
Which
no one
exists
will-
today.
Yeah, Porthos is smart enough to activate the replicator, but they put a cheese lock on there, and he's like hacking it. So, like...
Oh, I love that so much.
But we do see later Malcolm apparently does get her a shirt because we see Hoshi in a shirt, and the shirt does look a little bit too big on her, but notably it still looks too small for Malcolm.
Oh,
so
I mean, Malcolm's not that big.
yeah.
Does Malcolm just wear really tight shirts? I think maybe he does.
Maybe, yeah.
Is it
He
like
does
it's
seem
not?
like the
Is it
type.
like it's not like it's not like the uniform jacket? It's like a shirt.
It's just like a blue shirt.
Okay.
The director was like, "Yeah, we still need to see her tits."
Yeah, well, it had to be big enough to be like skinny girl in sexy oversized shirt,
Right.
but not so big that it looks ridiculous.
Yeah, that it doesn't look like she has a figure.
Never asked, never answered. What?
Where to begin?
So many things. Now we go into hour 2.
No, I just want to say nothing about time travel because we did get an explanation. The explanation is you're too stupid to understand it. So
Yeah.
You're too stupid to understand it.
my question is, why wasn't Silic able to contact the Phasey leader guy? He was so worked up about it. He seemed really scared he was going to get in trouble if he doesn't contact him. But it's not really clear what happened.
If I want to do work for this series, the whole point was like they couldn't destroy the Enterprise. He literally said, "Bring Archer to me."
Right.
So presumably, if Archer vanished into the future where Phasey guy lives,
But that was the future
also
Phasey guy
vanished.
wanted.
Yeah,
Phasey guy wanted the bad
So
time.
we should have been expecting that.
I don't think so. I think that something went wrong. Because Daniels pulled Archer into the future, so Archer wasn't. Fuck this show. Fuck this show.
And also, part of Archer's plan involved having Malcolm trick the Suliban into trying to use that device from Daniel's room to contact the Phasey guy. But how did Archer even know that the Suliban couldn't contact the Phasey guy and were
Great
upset
point.
about it?
Yep. Nobody. Yep. Nobody knows.
Never asked, never answered.
Never answered.
Technical difficulties for some technobabble. When the comms are down, the way Trip got them back up was by routing the signal through the EPS grid. And originally, when it was like zzz, 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 when only static was coming through, Malcolm was like, try modulating the subcarrier wave. And that apparently did end up fixing it.
I just want to point out, Trip did some engineering stuff, and it worked. So,
Yep.
my boy.
He did engineering magic. What the Phlox? Phlox was barely in this episode, but there was a cute scene when Hoshi got to his quarters. She did not actually come down out of the thing. She just reached her hand down from the ceiling, and Phlox just looks at her hand and his eyebrows raise and he's like, Hoshi? And she is basically just like, give me the goddamn device. She is like, I need to get out of here. I am claustrophobic. She was so great. Her line readings, I say this all the time about Linda Park. She has the funniest
she's very
line
good.
readings. She's
Cannot
so
wait.
good. But yeah, it was just a very, very cute, tiny scene with Hoshi and Phlox.
Nice.
And then, guys, for season 2, we have a new segment.
What?
It's called Where is HR? In
Okay, I think we're
reference to-
stealing this. Okay, do we get
A
permission
reference
to do this?
our Shuttlepod 1 episode when we had Andy from Women at Warp, and she talked about how they kind of did a Women at Warp Where's HR episode. So we're stealing it, but Women at Warp is ending in March.
So they're
they've
handing
been
it
going
off
there
to us
at
without
their
knowing
10-year
it.
All right.
at their 10-year anniversary.
They can't afford any lawyers.
We can apparently just steal this now. So Where is HR is for just anything in the episode where you're like, where the hell is HR? Why is
So
HR not
Hoshi
here?
totally assaults Malcolm by appearing topless in his room without permission.
It wasn't her fault.
I kind of feel like
She didn't do it intentionally.
She did.
That's always how it happens.
It wasn't intentional.
Oh, I showed up without my pants on.
It was not intentional the way Archer took a video
if
call
she was all
without a shirt on.
bitch, you know,
Yeah.
but she did not. So,
But there was, when Archer came back in the Suliban cell ship at the end, T'Pol asked him why the Suliban let him get away, and he was like, I know it's against regulations, but I brought a hostage, and he had an unconscious Silic in the ship. But again, like, they apparently have regulations. They've confirmed they have regulations that's like, you cannot take a hostage, and Archer's just like, fuck it, I'm taking the hostage.
I don't think that's against if your ship is being held by a hostile force, I don't think that taking a hostage
Apparently
is...
it was. So we are now at the segment of our show that we like to call Will's Holorex. We all know what one William Riker is doing in his holodeck. That's right, binging Enterprise. But what do we think he should be doing instead? Bill, what is your recommendation for us today?
My recommendation for this week is an anime and manga series called 'Tis Time for Torture Princess. It is a series about a princess. Her kingdom is fighting against the demon army. She gets captured, and she is tortured daily by the demons. It is the single most adorable and comfy series I have ever read in my life. Because the way they quote-unquote torture her is by being nice to her. And by giving her fresh-baked bread with butter and playing video games is a completely unbelievable and adorable series. 'Tis Time for Torture Princess.
Maria, what is your recommendation today?
all right. So my recommendation is a TV show called Elsbeth, 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 which is a sort of a procedural show. It's about a woman who is played by Carrie Preston, who is a lawyer who gets assigned to a New York police department to be sort of their oversight, to make sure that they are not doing bad things as cops. And she's also really good at solving crimes. It's basically a crime show. It's super fun. It's very funny and light and easy, very cozy mystery kind of feel to it. It is on CBS and available on Paramount Plus and various other places. The thing that I kind of love about it has sort of the Columbo vibe to it. Most episodes you see how the crime was committed and then figure out how she figures out who did it. Real fun show. Elsbeth on CBS.
All right. And my recommendation today is a video game called Roots of Pacha. It's a farming sim. It's very similar to Stardew Valley, but it takes place in prehistoric times. So it's like when you start out with the game, you just have the sun to know what time it is, but then eventually someone invents a sundial in your little village, and now you actually have a clock, so you know when to go to bed and stuff. It's fun because it's very similar to other farming sims, but the prehistoric angle makes it different enough that it feels very fresh. But otherwise, it's very similar to other farming sims. You're raising crops and animals. You get to know all the people in the town. Maybe you date some of them. There's a lovely little cave you can explore. If you liked Stardew Valley like me and have played hours and hours and hours and hours, that you're just love Stardew Valley but cannot play it anymore because you just already played it too much and you want something similar but different enough to feel fresh, Roots of Pacha.
Awesome.
You can't play Stardew Valley anymore because you fucked everybody in town and have been run out of Stardew Valley.
Everybody hates you now.
They tried to burn you at the stake as a witch.
And that's the episode. Thank you so much for listening. In 2 weeks, Maria will be watching the episode Carbon Creek. And it's going to be a little bit of a special episode because we're doing a twofer with the podcast Trek, Marry, Kill. Brian from that podcast is going to be coming on our podcast to talk about Carbon Creek. And then we are going to be going on his podcast to talk about Carbon Creek. And at the time you are listening to this, you still have 2 weeks to wait for our next episode. But guess what? The episode we were on, Trek, Marry, Kill, it is already out.
Nice.
It's actually been out for weeks. So if you are waiting for something to do before the next Enterprise Planning episode, try looking for Trek, Marry, Kill in your podcast app and find the episode that we were on.
Jamie, are you...
It's a podcast temporal Cold War.
Shit! You...
God damn it! God, you...
All right,
You beat
got it.
me.
Do it.
You beat me on the candle ghost joke before, and now I got you back.
Special thanks to K.O. Myers at Particulate Media for sound assistance, to our friend David for our beautiful cover art, and to John Stephen King for being the voice of our computer. If you like this show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice and tell your friends about it. We really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as Enterprise Splaining and on Blue Sky as @EnterpriseSplain. You can also email us any comments or questions such as, so wait, how does time travel work?
Don't email
Time
us
travel
that.
does not exist according to the Vulcan Science Council.
To enterprisesplaining@gmail.com. We truly just love hearing from you guys. If you want to support this podcast, you can find us at Buy Me a Coffee as Enterprise Splaining. We will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Computer. End program.
Nair was bad enough. Jesus, talk about scorching the lady planet.